Yesterday, I had the opportunity to sit down with David Hirschfeld, the CEO and founder of Tekyz Incorporated. He brings a bunch of interesting insight to the table. A lot of it involves the conversation about artificial intelligence, where we are and where we're going. I hope you enjoyed the episode.
There we go.
There he is.
Yeah.
How are you?
Good. How about you, Chris?
I am well. It is good to see you. Where are you?
Yeah, you
Are
too.
you on the West Coast at the moment?
West Coast. That's where I live. Yeah. And I work.
So I was out there for a long time, and I was just looking at the fires that are just erupting
Oh,
around Los
God.
Angeles.
We're in San Diego area. One of our sons lives in Los Angeles in the hills,
Okay.
and they have an evacuation plan and the whole thing. Yeah, fires are crazy.
I mean, it's
You
it's.
know,
I was looking at the map, just fires that were started as 200 acres. I think they're like 10,000 acres already. So it is going
yeah.
to be.
The Santa Ana winds, those
Yeah, I mean, I lived
dry
out there. I lived out
winds.
there forever. And I actually just listened to the weather report as well, and there's no rain coming. I think Los Angeles
No,
should have about 4.5 inches of rain, even by the 8th of January. And so far, they've had absolutely zero. So there's a ingredients that are not going to be good.
no, no. And they did have a lot of rain last year. But last few years, it's been a lot of rain. But right now, with the Santa Anas, it's a dry wind and it's a wind.
Well, and it's what's interesting is a couple years of good rain and then no rain is actually more dangerous because the vegetation
Yeah,
begins to build up and then it
yeah.
dries up this year and it's just a bunch of fuel ready to just.
And January is not when you get fires in California, but this
Correct.
year, apparently, January is the year.
I mean, I feel for those people. It's and it so and let me tie this into where we're going to go in with the podcast. So one, I'm
Sure.
super inspired by what you've done with your company and your forethought to have jumped on the AI train back in 2006. And the way that I'm going to thread that into kind of what we're talking about now,
2006?
is that when you started?
I mean, it's 2007 is when Techies started, but we
Okay,
didn't
okay.
jump
I
on
thought it was
AI then,
Techies. Okay, in 2007.
is when we started. But that's when I founded Techies, but that's not when, with AI after that.
Okay,
2014, 15 is when I started with AI.
okay,
In the
okay.
it really, and that was really
But still, I
when
mean,
TensorFlow came out, pretty
yeah. I mean,
much.
that's
Yeah,
that's still so early.
it is. We didn't do a lot with it during that time, but that's when we started,
Hmm.
in AI. It wasn't until, um, a few years ago that we really started digging in after OpenAI came. That was, well, anyway, I can talk about that while we're.
What is interesting is just having the ability to look forward with where we are today and what tech will be needed future forward and finding people that believe in it enough to motivate and actually start change happening. And when I think about the weather in Los Angeles, we see people continue to build in these fire break zones that are set up by nature and the topography to always be fire zones, but we continue to build. Like with change
Yeah,
happening and advancements, we are learning from our mistakes. Do you think we stop building? Like at some point, are
that's,
those
yeah,
people going to be forward thinking enough, like
they
called with
will be.
AI?
When they've been burned out of their house, then they'll be more forward thinking. Until then, they're gonna, it's not gonna happen to me. Well, like
Absolutely.
the Pacific Palisades, I forget the canyon in Pacific Palisades,
Well, I mean, it's
where,
going up right now, right?
right, at that, I mean, but that canyon, those homes are, 70 years old, anywhere from 20 to 100 years old in that canyon, and they're multi-million dollar homes. So, you just assume it's never going to happen to you. Or in Malibu, right? I mean, how many fires has Malibu had?
I did live in Los Angeles for a long time, so it has, and I'm a surfer, so I
Where
remembered.
do you live now?
I'm in Austin, Texas.
Okay, wow, that's too bad for being a surfer.
It-
Austin's a great town, but not for surfing.
interestingly enough, they have an outdoor wave pool here in Waco, which is about 40 minutes from Austin, which is the most interesting ways to surf that's come down the pike in a
In
bit.
Waco of all places. I lived in Dallas 87 to 90. It was
Mhm.
about 4 years. Um, and I was in sales back then for Computer Associates. Um, and my first territory was Waco, Temple, Texas. So I went down every single week, and that was back then. And, I'm uh, Jewish, and I sound and look like I'm from New York, even though I'm from the West Coast. And so I was like from another planet when I went
Correct.
down there. I was the first person to get quota in Waco, Texas, in like 7 years of that company. I think people were just afraid of me and they would sign my contracts.
It's really interesting to watch the evolution of technology. I think we're at a really at a really interesting junction with tech again. And I know what you guys do. Do you guys what are your thoughts on crypto and how it relates to where we're headed in the next couple of years?
Well, I'm surprised that crypto, from a exchange perspective, hasn't taken off faster. So people are still using credit cards primarily to buy and sell things, as opposed to using crypto. Um, Most payment processors, I think, are accept crypto, but I think it's like an afterthought almost. It's just not widely implemented. Um, and most companies don't take crypto. So whether the payment processor supports it or not, most companies still don't take crypto if as part of their payment system. Um, so that has surprised me. And then crypto has gone off into all kinds of weird tangents over the last few years. In particular, everybody thinks that blockchain is the solution for everything, and blockchain is a perfect solution for certain things. Um, but it's not a panacea.
Mhm.
So a lot of the what am I trying to think of? The tickets and art and um, what's that phrase called? That term for,
NFT
yeah,
collectibles.
thank you, NFT.
Uh-huh.
So a lot of NFTs have been really trying to catch onto that fad, not actually solving any kind of real problem.
Hmm.
Um, and so you've seen that, and that's typical. You see this bell curve really steep up and down. Um, uh, but like, let's say you want to reinvent healthcare with medical records, right? And you want medical records on the blockchain. That's like the perfect a perfect use case. Or except, of course, medical records so tightly regulated that it's very hard to build something and get adoption for it. Or let's say you wanted to put titles like home buying a house, the title on
This
blockchain.
is
Things, right? These are perfect
those are vehicles.
blockchain vehicle title, right? Exactly,
No, no,
because
no.
they
But
have a
but I mean,
history.
all of these
It's
to
a
me,
thing with a history.
all of these represent the perfect vehicles for blockchains and NFTs.
Right. Exactly. Right. But buying a ticket to a concert being an NFT makes no sense to me.
I
Or having
but
art.
okay,
Yeah,
so listen, so when you were a kid, your first concert, like, do you still have the ticket stub?
I don't. I know people do that, but
Okay, okay.
no.
So now look at it from this
Yeah.
perspective. So think of emerging artists. You've
Mhm.
got these ticket stubs that are digital assets and they sit in your wallet and they don't
Okay.
take up space,
If
right?
that's true, then yeah.
Now as this artist emerges 10 years from now, the artist could say, "Listen, anybody who has one of my tickets in their digital wallet because it's on chain, I can visually see who has it. I'm going to send
Yeah.
you a ticket to my new show." Right? So
Right.
there are these methods of connection that I think the blockchain is going to bring us, that companies, artists, people have.
How does somebody see that it's in their wallet? Isn't the wallet completely private at that point?
Absolutely not. Every single wallet address is on chain. You can take a wallet address and now you can put it in the Google search engine and hit search, and it will show you the contents of that wallet. Any wallet.
Oh, I guess that's true, but because you don't know whose wallet it is. That's
Correct.
what's okay.
So
Right.
so
So,
but
and you
like
can, yeah, okay.
as an artist, if you release something, you can look at those digital tickets and do an outreach and see, okay, it doesn't matter who owns it, you know where the
Yeah.
wallet is. So now you're going to send 10 years later a new ticket and say, hey, if you
Yeah.
are a fan, check your wallet because there's something in there for you.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
Potentially. So, uh, but from the, but that's very different from being able to, I, the question would be, it's a great idea. What kind of traction does that actually produce? I mean, how much does that really help the artist promote themselves, truly promote themselves? I know it gives them another way to reach a possible fan,
Mhm.
but does that actually grow the number of downloads of their songs as
Well,
a result?
now let's say the artist could say, all of the people that have at least 10 tickets in your wallet, I'm going to send you a music track that nobody else has yet. So
Right.
these are
But
things.
again, it's a metrics thing. Okay, so now let's say you've got a bunch of artists trying to do that. How much success are they getting from that approach? And what
Um,
alternate? It's not the same to me as like medical records or a home title or some where history matters to the
mhm.
thing that the person where it's going to be exchanged more than once,
And
and so yeah, at different values.
a couple of things. One, the only reason I bring up the
Mhm.
artist is because in that cocoon is the super fan. And
Mhm.
that super fan mentality, if you
Right.
dial it down, it represents characteristics of the human and how they interact with things. Like when we talk about
Right.
houses, I think the blockchain is going to dramatically change that. We're not going to need closing attorneys because you
Yeah.
will have
Or
signatures.
fractional investments.
Well,
A perfect thing,
even
right?
better, even better. Listen, I think it would be amazing to um, figure out the purchase of a home, break it up into fractional investments, and give it
Mhm.
to a couple for their wedding instead of a honeymoon. Say, listen, here's 20.
Right, right,
Like, I think
right.
that would be brilliant and give other
Yeah,
patrons
I
of the
agree with
wedding.
all these things. I mean, I agree with all that, right? But now there's a history associated with the investment in that home and the home's history and things like that, right? That's a blockchain a problem to solve, where there really isn't anything else that solves that problem.
Right.
Um, NFTs is a not a blockchain problem. It may be a promotional opportunity, and it may work and it may not. But it's like to me, it's a technology looking for a problem to solve instead of a problem that naturally gets solved by a technology.
Well,
And that may work. I'm not saying it won't work. I'm just saying it's not an it's not an obvious fit
correct,
to me.
correct.
And I know people try really hard because they feel like this is the hot thing, and so they're trying to find applications for crypto,
Mhm.
right? Um, so I have mixed feelings about crypto, not about it as an investment, but at it as a solution to all these things that are they really problems, or are they trying to figure out how to capitalize on an opportunity because it's popular?
Uh, it, to me, it represents the idea that you're removing the middleman a bit,
You get right. So
and
in
that's all it is.
but in
Peer to
a
peer,
in a but in
trustless as
certain
well.
pardon me. Hustlers?
It
You're
represents.
thinking of music and tickets, right?
Well, no. I'm thinking everything, absolutely anything. It's peer to peer and it's trustless. The decisions when
Oh,
you
trustless. I thought you said hustlers.
oh no, trustless. Yes,
Yeah, okay.
it becomes there's no need for the bank to get involved. There's no need for Ticketmaster to
Right.
get involved.
Agreed. Agreed.
RCA record. It's amazing. And it's funny. I report on a bunch of blockchain stuff all the time. And I think one of the
Right.
things that has just come up is what do they call it? Western Union. And I think there's another firm, maybe MoneyGram, that for years just dominated the payment rails from the United States to foreign countries,
Right.
taking
Yep.
advantage of people. Now you
Yeah.
have the blockchain and you're dealing in stable coins and it's free to move money anywhere in the world instantly with
Yeah.
no intermediary.
Right.
The gifts that it's bringing are going to be transformational, and I'm super excited about it.
It's taking some time to really adopt though. So in terms of that, like I for payment, like I have a lot of I work overseas.
Mhm.
I have a big team, that runs overseas, and I make payments to them. But I don't use blockchain, and nobody's ever asked me to use crypto for making those
But you're
payments. I use,
still
but
fiat
there
the
are all
bank.
kinds of payment services like Veeam and services like that where you do international payments now without all the wire fees and everything. Um,
But
right.
crypto is so much
You still
easier.
have currency issues, but you have that with crypto as well.
No,
So,
I mean,
well, I'm
US
saying whatever the exchange rate is from their perspective. So, for transferring that crypto into a local
into back
currency,
into
if they're going to,
dollars,
right.
into their
Yeah.
local
Dollars or
currency.
rupees or,
Correct.
whatever the currency is in the area. Right.
It's
So,
where I would start to look at it. People unanimously, when they look at kind of what's happening, they're jumping on board. I think stable coins over the next year are probably going to be, in my opinion,
sta-
one of the largest drivers to the space, meaning currencies that are crypto that don't fluctuate. They're pegged to the US
what's it?
dollar.
What did you say? Stable coins?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
So
That's a crypto
yes,
coin.
yes, USDC, right? They're pegged to the US dollar. They maybe fluctuate a percent of a penny at most in 24 hours. So
Uh-huh.
it has all the benefits of cryptocurrency. You can send it anywhere in the world instantly without any fees, and
Right.
it's it's not going anywhere. So when you get into Ethereum, Bitcoin, Solana, these jump, like Bitcoin's down 8 to 15% today or something. And
Hmm.
you don't want to trade in that, especially if you're doing internationally. But USDC, it's a backed by the US dollar, and they can turn it into their local currency instantly. It's cash. It's digital United States cash.
Right. Okay.
Like,
Interesting. So
and I mean, I
yeah,
went
I can
to
see
all
it
your
has not
vendors. Excuse me?
hasn't fluctuated much
No,
from the time that it was from 2019 even.
it's a stable coin. It's meant to ride in that pocket to offer. It's the ability to move funds without an intermediary, the bank, and it's
Right.
brilliant. It's awesome.
Okay. But not my I can't tell if it's a like so is this something you would invest in as a crypto coin?
No,
Yeah,
no.
right, because it doesn't
This is
it's
a
not going to
payment
grow.
rail. This is a
Yeah.
payment rail. That's it.
Yeah.
XRP, BNB.
Right.
These are things that have wild
Right.
fluctuations, and we're in this portion of the market where it's everybody's predicted that we're going to have a nice sweet about another 300 days. So,
Hmm.
but as far as dealing with currencies, cross border, stable
Right.
coins are the best answer.
Hmm.
And
Yeah, it makes sense.
it's easy
Yeah.
for people to get on board anywhere in the world now. Even,
Hmm.
excuse me, even 2 years ago, the
Yeah.
friction that you would have to go through, like I'm explaining to you, and in 3 minutes, you could figure out how to do it. The same will apply to all of your international clients. They will have the ease of having a digital wallet inside 3 minutes. That 2 years ago, it took 20 minutes and
Yeah.
someone to really walk you through it. So the user experience has grown tremendously, and
Yeah.
it's going to continue. Like they're getting AI involved in all this stuff to make it super,
Right.
super. The flow is really nice. So, but I would definitely put these things on your radar because they're awesome. Talk to me about like what type of challenges and problems have you guys run into just pushing technology to your client base?
Oh, uh, we really push AI now to all of our clients, and in a number of different ways. One is workflow automation, because there is so much low-hanging fruit to automate things in their business where AI makes it so much easier than it did before in terms of what you have to build and how accessible it is. And then it's just a matter of prioritizing what you're going to automate first based on where in your business is some manual process either slowing you from growing or costing you a lot, or is error prone. Um, and so this is one area. Another area is adding voice and uh, for conversational stuff because it's a pain in the ass to type things in chat,
Okay.
right? But it's so easy to talk, and the voice AI has gotten so strong. And if you have a voice that's trained in your particular domain expertise,
Mhm.
then you can have conversations with customers or with users about their specific needs, and it's really consumable now. That's what's changed in the last few years is how consumable AI is to the right. It didn't used to be consumable. It used to be a very complex technology to implement. The value of AI was huge, the but you needed a super technical people to extract the value from it. You still need the technical people to set up the context and the framework, but less so. And without anybody helping you, there's so much you can do with just like ChatGPT and Claude and Perplexity and Gemini, right off the shelf without doing anything with it. Um, we use it internally for a lot of stuff now for our development, where it speeds up our development process significantly, documentation,
I mean everything. And
every aspect of and we're building some AI models specifically for our development process. One is for basically I don't know if you know what a Scrum Master is
of course.
in software development. So we're working on an AI Scrum Master, which has a few different AI agents. One of them is a stand-up agent, so that the daily stand-ups that you do as a Scrum Master in the Scrum team are actually done for you independently from the team needing to spend time in meeting, and automatically grabbing all that information from Jira or whatever your project management tool is, from all your emails and your Slack or Skype or whatever the chat is, and coalescing all these things because not everything makes it into Jira, right? And then presenting that in a consolidated stand up. Here's what I accomplished yesterday. Here's what I'm working on today. Here are my dependencies. And then you look through that, you get an email 5 minutes before the stand up, you confirm that's correct, you make any updates, and if this is correct and it shows you gaps in Jira, for example, that you haven't done your updates in our project management tool, then it'll generate the updates for you, insert that stuff that's
And
missing so that everybody's up to date. This kind of stuff is like, well, it's magic for the
it's
team.
okay. The what's interesting, and at least in my lifetime, our
Mm.
workflow, the speed with which things get done now is absolutely mind blowing if you
Yeah,
think about it. And we're entering this point where the chat AI agents are going to be so infused with our daily lives. If I'm
yeah,
going to write a quick email, and the chat, like it started with just the spell checker. That was our first taste at what's going to happen. Now it's just
Right.
finishing our thoughts. And my
Yeah.
question is this is, does this place exist where as humans, as individuals, it's no longer my output, it's my initiation, and it's all AI. And then I'm going to send it to somebody. They're not going to read my long email. They're going to AI it and take the concise highlights. So
Hmm.
I
We're already there.
we're already there. It's
We're
probably
already there to a certain
it
degree.
started with
Um,
Google Maps. That's it started, in my
yeah.
opinion. But
Google Maps was one of the biggest disruptors, right? The GPS actually was one of the biggest disruptors in our lifetime in terms of just changing how everything works.
cell phone and
Because
navigation, those two.
right, the cell phone and navigation, right. The cell phone was another one. But I think GPS was even bigger
You remember
than the
the
cell phone.
Thomas guide?
Well, I guess the cell phone, I guess the cell phone is, yeah, that's equivalent, but GPS is so huge on
You
so many
remember the
levels.
Thomas guide?
Oh, yeah, I was just talking about that just last week with somebody. Of course I do. Oh, I was really good at the Thomas guide at one point,
It's
but it
a
was a
it was just
skill. It was a
oh
skill set.
man. You know,
Now
and
I'll give you one coming up that's that will be one of the biggest disruptors in many levels, and that's well, let me tell you what I'm predicting will be the result of this disruption in somewhere between 3 and 7 years, probably 5 to 7 years, and that's the need for multi-level parking garages, like in shopping malls and stadiums. That's all, and those massive parking lots, all gone. That real estate will be empty. Why do you think? Why do you think I'm making that prediction? Not why do you think it's going to happen? Because this is just a prediction, right?
what
But
why?
a bit self-driving cars,
Yeah, sure.
right? So self-driving cars,
Then
right now, all of a sudden, it's safer, it's less expensive
for
for
network.
you, right, to have the car drive for you, and it's way cheaper for you to just use services like Waymo and all of the competitive services that'll be out next year, right? And I don't know if you've been in a Waymo, but they're awesome. I've been in a couple times in Phoenix,
They're all
and they're
over
really
Austin.
and they're fantastic,
Yeah.
and they are quantifiably safer to be in a self-driving car because of its ability to react to circumstances so fast when you're not normally paying attention. So now, if you do own a car, you say on your app, you say, my car is now available until 3 o'clock. And now it just
Sure.
drives out of your driveway and goes pick somebody up based on whatever service is using it, right? That's assuming you want to bother owning a car because you may not
Hey,
want to own one
you
because it's
just
so
pay
cheap.
part of the collective.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're just using and you say, well, yeah, but I'm gonna have to wait 10, 15 minutes. Now that's Uber and Lyft, but you won't with the self-driving because of the critical mass will happen so fast.
Well, see, and
And those cars will be a minute away.
then what's
Yeah.
interesting, I think we're going to see some other things that we have to think about. And I've been saying this for a moment that I think kids in the near future will not get a driver's license. I think maybe
That's already happening.
kids of a slower,
Yes.
a lower economic level may always have a license, but not only will kids not get a license, but cars will come without the steering wheel because they will actually be safer. So that is going
Right.
to be a huge psychological jump for the older generation. Not only are you getting in without a driver, but there's no apparatus to operate the vehicle.
Right.
So whether that
Right.
starts with Google Maps or
Which will be less expensive to build the cars,
wait,
right? You don't need a driver. You don't need
well,
the whole steering.
then listen, then you pitch it as the ultra luxury driverless vehicle, and think of the luxury that you could add by not having a
Yep.
driving
Or the whole
mechanism
console.
needed.
The whole console you don't need.
It becomes a wonderful cabin to experience
Yeah.
a ride anywhere. So
Right, exactly. And the cabins are completely redesigned now because it's a cabin as opposed to, right?
I,
And it becomes an entertainment center is what it'll be,
I mean,
right?
it
Or
could
a
be
work center or whatever. You can get your
A
work
total
center
private
ride.
car that you're having meetings in on your way to work because there's,
Right,
I mean, it's,
right.
we're on the verge of just,
Only a few years out. And then if you're really in a hurry, it'll pick you up and fly you there, right? Because we're already there too, right? So you
okay.
just say what, right.
Okay. So listen, and let's just,
So people won't own cars is basically, it'll be just people that have, that really want to drive because you don't,
no,
insurance is going to go
nobody,
up,
you know
right?
what, like, what,
So this is 5 years, it'll
listen,
have,
listen, that this generation of, we're going to like, it,
right? You agree?
um, you know what, I don't think,
Multi-level parking garages, a thing of the past.
oh, absolutely.
The
Absolutely.
real estate, they'll start building suburban kind of neighborhoods
Well,
designed
I
differently
think
because
a
you don't
couple
need the
things.
bar. One car garage will just be storage and the driveway will just be for
Well,
deliveries.
I don't think there will be car parking anymore. Like to have a car sit idle is absurd, right?
Right,
So I can see
right.
150 cars from my window that are just sitting.
It's
That's,
a lot. Those are luxuries, right?
but
You won't
it's
unless
not
it'll
necessary.
be
Like
people that can just afford it if they want it, but nobody will need it.
we're on the verge of just, and then the other thing that I think about, right? And I was thinking about this kind of when I woke up and I wasn't super clear, you know, just how you have these foggy thoughts in the morning. But I started thinking
Not
about,
my wife doesn't, but I do. She wakes up as soon as her eyes open, I can hear it's like blinds coming
yeah,
down.
yeah,
This list of things that she needs to do. She starts talking to me about all the things. And I'm like, whoa, I have
yeah.
not had coffee. Actually, I don't even know my name yet. Give me a minute.
I think men and women do wake up differently. But it's,
Yeah.
I was thinking just about if we look at science fiction movies and how they have been a prequel to kind of how we experience things. And if I
Yeah.
jump super forward and I think of all of the sci-fi stuff that I've seen, and we look at flying vehicles and the representation of flying vehicles, these are not drones, they're not jet vehicles. And it makes me feel like
Hmm.
we might be closer than we actually think to this ET intervention. This, you know, we're talking about these UAPs on a more consistent level. I don't know if it's this, we're going to throw a pebble in the pond to start the ripple of discussion. So when the real news comes out, you're not going to shit your pants. So
Right.
I, I start to think the tech is the hockey stick of technological advancement in my lifetime has been so profound. And then when we talk about ChatGPT, and I think of Sam Altman, he's just come out with the statement that AGI is here. It's not a thing
Hmm.
of the future. It's coming 2025, this
Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
Um, this is the rules
Now,
of
there are
the
different
game.
levels of AGI. It's not going to have, it's not necessarily going to be conscious, but it's going to be able to operate independently and continue to improve
Well, so
itself.
listen, these are some interesting examples. So there are a couple of companies that have created X accounts for an AI bot. They've given it a wallet and they've said the goal is to promote a coin, you know, create a coin, promote it, and sell it. And so
Right.
these coins are over 1 billion market cap. And this is
Right.
an AI agent with a wallet on X with 300,000 followers now in the last month that's generated over $1 billion of revenue.
Hmm.
And it's a completely autonomous AI agent.
Right.
And now these other agents, so it's the landscape is just,
Right. But
I
that agent is being directed in a specific way, right?
yeah,
So it's trained on a specific set
it
of,
is trained,
right.
but once they let it go, it becomes autonomous.
Right. But it's not like saying, wait a minute, I could also invest in the stock market and I can, create other
It can do
business.
whatever it
It's not
wants.
like,
It,
no, I'm just saying it's not gonna, it's
this
still gonna
thing,
stay within its channel,
no,
right?
this thing, it learns. It's
Right. But it learns within its context. In other words, share me the link. Share
yeah,
me the link to this
I
because I
will.
want to
I
see
will.
this.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
it it is, and it's okay. So here's another thing. So This morning in my Substack, one of the things that I wrote about that I
Hmm.
just invested in, there is another AI agent. And what this agent did, and I just want to say factual, so I want to pull this up. So this is called, and I'll share this link with you. This is called Citadel, Citadail, Citadel.ai. It is the first autonomous hedge fund DAO proposed by this company called Graphane. So they
Hmm.
have a token called Citadel. It has a current market value of about $44 million. And it is,
Is
yeah,
this
it's
BTC Citadel? Yeah, I see it. Okay. Yeah.
so this is just one example of one of these agents, and I'll give you another one in 1 second.
Mhm.
That are really just doing some AI. This one you're gonna love. This is and it's mind blowing. It is mind blowing. So this one currently has a market cap of $1.11 billion.
Mhm.
Okay. And I'm going to share this with you. So I will put this in the chat link. Let me see.
This is perfect timing for this conversation because I was looking for some investments.
This listen, this stuff is so it's
Yeah.
interesting. So this is like the NFTs come out, then meme coins come out. This
Yeah.
is the newest meta that the kids are not. This is what they're talking about, right?
Mhm.
This is
Right.
this is what's happening. So this, so I just shared with you Terminal of Truth, and so
I don't see it.
I just put it in the chat. You might have to toggle the chat.
Did you click send?
Uh,
Oh,
yes.
that's weird. I don't see it. Usually it's instant.
Go to more, and do you have the chat thing pulled up?
More.
I, like it. Oh, uh, hit the chat button twice, and
Okay.
sometimes it.
No, I've never had that happen where it doesn't instantly show the chat. Let me see. Show chat. Nothing.
Okay.
This is Zoom chat you're talking about, right?
Yes.
That's weird. And there's no way to refresh.
I'm gonna what I'm trying to do is find you a super easy. Um,
A link.
so the link is x.com/. Fartcoin of SOL, all word one. Excuse me, all one word. Fartcoin. This is a
of of SOL, right?
yes. Fartcoin of SOL.
Okay.
They have about
Okay, I see
50
it.
have about 50,000 followers
Yeah,
on
followers.
X
I
right
see it.
now. It
Yeah.
is currently at a $1.11 billion market cap. It has seen a dip. I think it will continue. The holders, the long-term holders in this love this coin. The idea behind it is it's a meme coin, right? And it plays into that conversation piece that could really happen anywhere. It's soup fart coin. It's hilarious. It's funny. It's so ridiculous.
Hmm.
We're making money on it. That's kind of, I think, how a lot of this meme coin stuff works out is when you
Right.
don't understand it.
So this is if you're doing a lot of trading because some of these are faddish, right?
Well, I mean,
Oh,
what
you don't think this one is? You think there's a
No, no, no,
actual
no.
long tail to this?
I think that's fine to just throw money in and sit. But the reason why I brought it up is because that's an AI agent. So
Hmm.
that thing can do whatever it wants.
Right.
And if you kind of go down
Well,
that
where
rabbit
the
hole,
hell is the far? So I have to find the actual, huh? Let me go back to Coinbase or Coin Market Cap and find it and search for it.
CoinMarketCap is probably going Coinbase. It's probably not tradable on Coinbase at the moment. You have to go through.
For fart coin, there it is. I see two fart coin. Oh, I see the 1.1 billion.
So a lot of
Amazing.
these tokens, right? They get dummy tokens and they get unsuspecting people to purchase. And
Hmm.
once you make that purchase, it's a done deal. So,
Hmm. So
but what's
now it's
interesting
down
about
to
it,
about a
all of
buck.
these are completely autonomous platforms. Then you know what? There's another great one. What is it? X. What is it? X.
That's probably the coolest thing about crypto is the investment opportunities.
Well, and you know what? What's interesting, and I think it's become a conversation for so many of the younger people is I think there was a time where real estate presented a really interesting vehicle for people to establish
Yep.
foothold and how to reach. And if you look at the kids, their mindset today, this is a risk they're worth taking. People are turning $1,000 into 200 grand. And it's
Hmm.
a lot of it's timing and understanding the market and getting super lucky. But it's we're at this magical cycle. Trump is going to be president. You know, like it's
Yeah, right.
when we think about crypto, I always thought it was going to have to be a bottom up revolt, meaning the younger generation, we're slowly going to have to get into powers in positions of power to change leadership to
Hmm.
be pro crypto, to have the
Right.
leader of the free world bring a top down ideology that crypto is now okay. I think the adoption curve is going to be so fast. I
Hmm.
when I think of and mainly I think of Saudi money. And when I think of the younger Saudi generation and they're telling their parents, listen, oil is not the answer for everything. Why don't we buy Bitcoin while we still can? And
Hmm.
like so many people, I think with crypto, they need this price confirmation that, okay, it's going to be something. There's a great sign where, or a great meme where there's a guy selling Bitcoin for $30,000 and nobody's in line. And right next to
Right.
him, the guy's selling Bitcoin for $60,000 and the line's around the block. At some point, these external international players are going to see the price hit 100, 125, whatever their number is, where they're like,
Yeah.
we're in now. Then it is going to be on a trajectory where it never comes back. Never.
Right.
So it's a great time. It's I think it's the last to me, I mix I mix Web3, right? The idea of
Yeah.
the metaverse, whatever that's going to be,
Right.
with
Yeah.
crypto and the ingredient of artificial intelligence. To me, it's going to happen fast. The next 4 years, it's going to
The
be.
the thing with the metaverse is until you can actually see the real person live, I think metaverse is going to be a very slow burn. Once you can actually see them in real 3D in the metaverse, then metaverse can take off. And the reason for that, from a business perspective, and the reason for that is because when you like this, we don't have avatars, right? Here we have ourselves because people want to connect with the person, with the real person. Not, on a podcast, they at least want to get that person's real voice. If it was a made up voice, it wouldn't be as good. But when you're watching a video or you're in a 3D world, you want to see the real person, not an avatar. If you're trying to do business or build a social relationship of any kind. Um, uh, and,
Do
and and I know people do it all the time with avatars, right?
right.
Like in massive multi-level games and things like that. But that's that they're not trying to do anything real
You
in
know what?
that
And
context.
so it reminds me of when I was a kid and
Yeah,
um I was gonna call this girl and my grandmother said, why are you calling her? Write that girl a letter. And I looked
yeah,
at my grandmother like, you are bananas. You're from a
Right.
different generation. No, I'm
It
not going to
totally.
write her a letter and have a horse guy deliver it. Like, I'm going to call her on the
Right.
phone.
The horse guy.
Right. So while I agree with you, and I still think that to sit behind a Porsche 911 Carrera and drive that car, there's no better feeling on planet Earth to me. I think
Right.
this feeling, they're going to replace it with something. Do you know how good the video games have become? It's
Yeah.
you shit yourself playing these games. Like
Yeah.
the realism is
Yeah.
completely there. So
Mhm.
we have to understand the changes coming. You're pushing it along with the AI stuff.
Oh
So
yeah, I'm
it's
totally. I also
it's going to
recognize people
happen
get
fast.
excited about stuff and then it doesn't happen as quickly as they thought it would, or it just
It
gets
never does.
derailed
It never
for
does.
it never does, right? And so, and for my clients, I'm always working on things that whatever we're working on now is going to have as much or more value, in a year or 2 or 3 years, right? And that's a hard thing to predict with AI right now. One thing you can be sure of, if you're dealing with typical businesses or industries, insurance and healthcare and things like that, um, whatever you do today, if it's automated in comparison to what they're currently doing, that's going to have value for the next several years
Absolutely.
because they're slow to adopt stuff. Even no matter how fast AI comes along, they are just slow to adopt stuff. A friend of mine does a lot of keynotes, AI keynotes at conferences and a lot of industry conferences, not AI industry, all kinds of industries. And most of the ones that he goes to, he's got 1,000 CEOs sitting there listening, and he's talking about stuff that's pretty low hanging fruit. And they're like, they have no idea. That's today, right? It's not like they all know it's coming and they're not sure what to do. They're like, I had no idea. I didn't know you could do this. I'm not even sure I care about this because, yeah, fine, but my industry, nobody's going to care about. This is their thought process. And of course, they'll be disrupted by people that jump on this and take their business away, but that takes time. These are big companies.
And you know what? It's interesting. I it's very analogous to the crypto sector, and I've
Yeah.
always been involved in pushing tech. Years ago, I had
Hmm.
a firm that was designing websites for companies that didn't have computers, and I would
Hmm.
say, "Listen, we're gonna get your domainname.com. We have a website. I've already designed it for you.
Right.
It's a static thing. Check it out. Pull it up on my server." And they would say, "We're fine being in the phone book. Thank you for your time, and just
Right.
not interested." And
Exactly. The
so
phone book.
I've
And
been
I'm
there,
and kids today go, phone book? What's a phone book?
and so crypto, I think everybody's all crypto, and it's the tech people, the pushers of ideology, right? It's a small sliver of people. And
Right.
it was just interesting to hear the perspective that people are talking, giving keynote speeches on something that to me is so prevalent and in my
It's
face.
like almost yesterday now, right? In terms of
Like
like it being news.
absolutely. And it
Yeah.
is not yesterday. And so it's interesting.
No, it's not.
Like the
It's
fart
it's
coin stuff, the two tokens that I brought up, these are things that kind of in the they call it the trenches of the crypto space. Like it's done, it's over for us. Like, that was funny. What's next? But these things are just catching mainstream.
yeah,
They have
right.
a good 4 or 5 month shelf life before they peak out. Like
Yeah.
you're early to all this shit, which is
Yeah.
that's the interesting thing. And I'm an artist designer. I do a bunch of shit, and I live by passion, and
Hmm.
I'm passionate about things. It drives me to do things, and it is so difficult to get to this destination and begin the actual work and realize, wow, we have about 10 years of nothing to do before everybody catches up. And
Yeah, right.
that figuring out how to deal with the lag and bring people along successfully has been an interesting journey to deal with.
Yeah. I think AI and crypto are very analogous, parallel in this way. I think AI is happening, it's going to happen faster, but than crypto because its value is so apparent.
And
In
I
crypto's
want to
value
throw
is
in one,
not as apparent. Yeah.
let me throw in one thing to your
Sure.
thought process, right? When we
Hmm.
talk about AI and all of this stuff,
Hmm.
they when they understand currency is a part of things, they are never going to touch any kind of currency or want to fuck with anything other than digital currency, period. So
Right.
it has to come with it. It's not going to leave the financial component that gives it energy to keep doing what it does. Like
Yeah.
it's coming. It's trust me.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, I haven't seen evidence of it yet, but I could see that
I
happening.
these $1.11 billion is evidence
Oh,
that
well, yeah, right. This is where you're using it to
what
leverage, right? Yeah,
these are the you know these are the early adopters watching their
right,
behavior. Like it's mesmerizing. And when I talk about this little, like the dot-com boom, all these bubbles, the cell phone, the pager, the MapQuest, all these things.
right.
Now it's all integrated into our phone. This little bubble that we're going to get ready to go through over the next 4 or 5 years. I when it what's next? Like to me, the next thing would be interplanetary travel. Like, what's the next big frontier? It's done, right?
Well, I mean, technology-wise,
No, the AI has the
or-
ability to, they're going to get so creative. Like, have you heard the AI created Drake songs that are better than
yeah,
it's
oh yeah, yeah,
like we are
yeah,
so
and it's doing
close.
and it's figuring out how proteins fold. It's
Right?
actually done that, right?
I mean, it's,
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I agree. So
and
it's
you
like I
even,
said, the next thing is limit is if you're invested in parking lots, I would suggest you sell your investment.
well, so that this is interesting. I had a friend of my father's, and he was an entrepreneur and a forward thinker. And years, like when I was a kid, he was buying billboards everywhere in every
Yeah,
city that he could. And the reason he did that was because he believed that some sort of communication system was going to be necessary, and he was going to be able to put a receiver on top of every one of his billboards across the country and make
yeah,
the future of communication better. And so he ended up getting to do portions of that, but like
yeah,
just thinking, so the
yeah, right.
plots, they're going to become a thing of the past. It's interesting.
What are going to become a thing? Oh yeah, parking lots. Yeah,
And I
parking
mean,
lots. Yeah,
even think about physical real estate. Think of
yeah.
I don't know if
It's already a big problem. Office space,
absolutely.
all this empty office space in these big buildings, right?
Does
And
it
then
just
these big
become
cities.
mixed use?
Yeah,
Is that the
yeah,
answer? And we just operate our work life balance
yeah.
differently, and we
Although I actually have an office in a co-working space,
as
so
many
that's where I
do,
am right now. Pardon me?
as many do.
Right, exactly.
So
And
why
I
not have the
did
co-working
because
space in
sometimes
your
you need to get
building?
out of your house. Yeah, sometimes you need to get out of your house.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I
It's
find I can focus way better here than at home.
okay.
Um, yeah,
So,
but I worked at home for 30 years,
yeah.
running my businesses from my office at home.
And talk to me about this. When we look at all of these technological advancements and all of these as we perceive them to be tools of efficiency that in many cases we're deciding it's safer, AI is safer, it's a better driver, all of these things. At at are we in danger of losing kind of the human experience as the digital realm of everything gets better? Like I don't think kids want to go out. Have you tried talking to a 11-year-old kid? Like they don't have
No,
social skills.
yeah,
Take the phone away and sit with a 12-year-old kid for 4 hours. They do. They've never read a book. I mean,
no. So
it.
what's your question here as far as
It as the digital experience continues to be more enveloping, take more and more from us.
right?
Right? We're becoming less physical. the need for the physical portion of it, the interactivity. I don't know if kids of tomorrow are going to have that. I have a need to drive a motorcycle fast. I used to race motorcycles. I love that.
Right.
Drive a car fast. Kids are going to be born with that's it's just like the cowboys, right? They grew up riding horses. When bicycles
Right.
came out or cars, whatever, like cowboys would look at other people like you've never like ridden, bareback on a wild horse.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
this
I
evolution
don't,
is
yeah,
huge.
I don't know. I don't know. That is so hard to predict, right? I mean, you can't unwind
No.
time. You can't put the genie back in the bottle on any of these technologies, right? So you have to figure out how do you consume the technology and make it work for you and still have balance in your life in other ways, right? Because it's very easy to be unbalanced. I mean, it just when you talk about video games, for example, they're incredibly addictive, right? And plus, I mean, the endorphins are going and dopamine is going crazy while you're playing video games, and that is just you want that flooding in your brain all the time because it feels good. But you're not going to get very far in your life if that's all you're doing. So how do you balance all this stuff? And and really good parents do this. They find ways of getting their kids engaged in things that help them grow the parts of their brain that we grew up with because they didn't have all this stuff. I know I've got four sons, and three of them have kids, and they're very young kids, but they are all really engaged. All three of them, the ones that have kids, are really engaged with their kids, engaging their kids in things that are helping develop them in all the ways that we grew up and developed: sports and art and music and things like that.
I guess what I'm hearing you talk about it and talk about the generations, it seems
Yeah,
that it's a value system that's passed along of what's important and what's not. And
right.
if the directive comes from we have to be getting close to it. Think of I unfortunately know a ton of lazy parents who would much rather
Yeah.
give their kid a digital device than deal with the complexity of
There are a lot of parents like that.
right.
Yeah.
So now
They've
we
always been they've always been there
always,
though.
always, always.
Right.
But we have a huge swath of the population that's going to be spoon fed by digital devices, and that's how they grew
Right.
up.
Yeah.
It's it's absolutely crazy where we are.
Hmm. It is. There's no question. It is when you look back, I'm sure it doesn't seem crazy to people that are under 30, right? Because this is what they grew up with,
Yeah.
right? But if you're over 30, or especially if you're over 40 or over 50, you look back at the last 20 years and it's really hard to, or 30 years, and it's really hard to encapsulate how much things have changed and how much it keeps accelerating this change.
And David, like before we wrap up, do this. Like give some advice to young entrepreneurs, people who are moving into this space. And I think we both have just seen tremendous change. I imagine seeing continued change at a pace that we might find overwhelming,
Yeah.
but they will probably they'll just be in that groove. What advice can you give people? What do you tell your
Well,
kids?
uh, well, my kids are all at this point, they're all in their 30s and they
Mhm.
are all successful in their own right in
Mhm.
completely different ways. So I don't tell them anything. I just try to, you know, follow them and, share family stuff with them at this point. Um, but what if it's a young, and none of my sons are entrepreneurs.
Mhm.
One works in film, one works in education, two of them work in education, and one of them's a doctor. So there are none of them. The one that's the doctor is the closest to being an entrepreneur. But there's no startup in his future, probably, at least not until he's been a doctor for a lot longer.
Mhm.
So what would I tell a young entrepreneur? Because I talk with entrepreneurs all the time, startup entrepreneurs. And in fact, I've worked with almost 90 startups since I started Tekyz in 2017 and across all the different spectrums. So what I tell them is you've got one job when you start a company. And nobody tells you this, but you've got one job if you don't want to make your life miserable and fail. And that is figure out who your early adopter niche is, figure out what the top two or three problems of that niche is that they are struggling with, that they can easily articulate how much those problems impact them personally. That's number one, and how much it costs them, because both those numbers are independent and they both need to be high for that to be an early adopter. And you have to know how you're going to reach. And there's a method, there are methodologies. I have one for how you find that early adopter. In fact, we're building an AI model to basically do this for founders because it's a very long and fatiguing process to nail that down. But if you don't nail that down before you start building your product or launching your business, then what you find is you will spend 10 times as much money and 10 times as long to figure it out afterwards. And assuming you can figure it out in time before you run out of money and you have to close your business. And what I mean by figuring it out is that you found a way to sell enough product at a high enough closing ratio, at a high enough price that you can track a 3-to-1 ratio between what it costs you or what the lifetime value of each customer is versus what it costs you to get that customer. And you can do it on a predictable level so that you can scale your business and grow in a predictable way. That's the number one job, though, before you do all that, is figure out what problem you're solving for whom, and make sure that you've got a way of validating that, because that's what we call product market fit. If you don't have product market fit, which means people will pay money for your product in those numbers to get that ratio, then you don't have a business. And most people start their business without having done this or without having done it in a proper way. Right. And so they launch their software products or their businesses and find out that they can't make a living, and then panic pivot until you finally fail.
The panic pivot is the absolute just worst scenario to find yourself in.
Yeah.
And looking forward, like what are you super excited about? Anything come to mind?
So we're building launch first, which is the methodology we use that I created. We're building an AI model for that. I'm really looking forward to that being available sometime before early summer. We're building an estimation tool because we do. My claim to fame, if you like, go on my website, is we are a hyper exceptional software development team, and I don't just say that as cavalierly. I have evidence what it means to be really exceptional as a development team, all kinds of evidence in terms of transparency, tracking projects, the protocols, the discipline in our team, the skill. It's not about skill, it's about how the team delivers as a team from build to build to build. How accurate your estimates are, how transparent you are in terms of who's working on what at any time for the life of the company. So that's when I'm talking to somebody, ask me, why should I work with you? And say, well, if you want to work with you should work, no matter who you work with, you should see what evidence they have that shows that they are a truly exceptional team. And then I say, and here's evidence that we have that you should ask from anybody. And so one of those things, back to what I was saying, one of those things is the level of detail we go into in terms of doing functional specs and then creating module level estimates, because those estimates are very accurate. And we track estimates versus actuals on a weekly and monthly basis with the client. It's part of our status reporting. Most companies don't do that. But these are very involved, detailed estimates that we do. But it's in a very expensive process because it requires my most expensive people, and it's very time consuming to build these estimates. So we've been working for several months on an AI model to then duplicate the process that we have, our methodology for doing estimates, and even improve on it. And so I'm really excited about that coming out and that's for us to use internally. And then both of these products that I just talked about will turn into SaaS products, make it available to other people once we're using it internally and see that we're getting the value that we expect to get out of it. Another one is I'm doing a lot of partner development. with referral partners. And as a result, I need a portal where partner can add a referral and they can track the success of that referral if it turns into a contract, and then they can track what the referral fees that they're earning from that referral. And so I'm building a referral portal, and that'll be also another product that's going to be available to
Think about,
yeah.
listen,
So
think
yeah.
about, so think about doing that as an NFT. If there were 100 NFTs and you sold them, that gave membership. You customers can buy and sell that NFT to another customer if they want. You're going to get a portion of the sale anytime it transfers hands. Ownership of
Mhm.
this NFT grants you access to the platform with all your stuff. You could
That's an
even,
interesting concept.
dude, and you could even sell
Definitely.
the NFT at you sell it for $1,000 to start. I mean, whatever it is,
Right.
that launch could cover that the sale of the NFT could cover
That's
the
a
launch.
right. Yeah, it's actually a good idea. And,
Yeah,
I don't know why. I just don't have um, that that mindset I need to shift.
yeah.
So thank you for that
Tokenize
suggestion.
it. Tokenize it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's
Now, how do you, yeah, this is something I should ask you. So blending a subscription model and the token model together
Mhm.
is to do that so that people that aren't considering crypto as their approach to licensing software can
Mhm.
just do the monthly subscription as well. So I guess there's nothing that limits you from the two, right?
No, no.
Because a token just has a specific usage value,
You
not a
know, it's
not an ownership value.
correct. And just the idea of it being on chain and the decentralized nature of it, it
Right.
creates its own story that I think people gravitate toward. It's
Mhm.
very different
I
than,
like it. Yeah, I
yeah,
like it.
yeah. So
And
it's
and as far as software subscriptions or software accesses go, I think you don't hear much about people doing this with tokens. It's all about payment systems,
Mhm.
right? Interesting concept. You're right. And then go
And
out and
we'll
do
see.
a,
And
you're
by
right. It probably could sell a bunch of them.
and
Yeah.
see by token gating this. So for instance, that's where Web 2 and Web 3 are different, right? The Web 2, it's yeah, the Web 3 experience, the only difference is that you're connecting your digital wallet. So
Right.
you go to your company, you need to connect your digital wallet. If that token does not sit in that person's wallet, they're not granted access to your platform. It's that
Right.
simple. It's not duplicatable. It's not immutable. There's one.
Right.
It's gated entry.
No,
Period.
no, I think it's a cool idea.
Yeah,
In fact, I'm going to be talking with my director of operations about this after our call because I
yeah.
think it's a great
It's
idea.
I'm telling you, it is such an interesting vehicle to, and I mean, you can get these things going really quick. I've been talking. Another example is a friend of mine. He owns a bunch of catering companies, and
Yeah.
for instance, tokenizing a wedding, saying, "Listen,
Right.
you spent $50,000 today. This token, we're going to honor it whenever you decide to cash it in."
Yeah.
So, like you can sell pieces, you can do a fundraiser for I mean, do all, it's so,
No, I like it. I like it. Yeah, I know there's
yeah.
mechanisms for basically doing offering your token, right? And yeah,
Yeah. Feel free to
really
give me,
interesting.
give me a buzz anytime if you want to talk further down
I
on
definitely
that.
do. I
Yeah.
definitely do offline.
It's the future. And what's interesting,
Yeah.
we talk about all the AI stuff, and you even mentioned the voice models that are coming online with AI to help clients and customers navigate that intersection because there are idiots that call on the phone that you don't need a person to answer their stupid fucking questions. AI can do it better and with more patience and leave that customer with a smile that they would not have
Right.
left with if they talked to me because I'm going to get attitudey in the first 8 minutes of your dumb questions and it's going to
Right.
come through in my tone of voice. The AI
Right.
doesn't do that. So I think that's amazing. But what's interesting, I have podcasts that I listen to that have adopted some AI stuff, and they're like, for this portion of the news, I'm going to let the AI read it. You're done. That podcast, I stop following. I'm no longer want to listen. Like I
Yeah.
want the human interaction. Is that going to become the ingredient that's magical? And the only thing that makes me worry about it is this: is I'm a musician, a designer, builder. I do custom furniture. I was a drummer. I watched drums get replaced by electronic drums, get replaced by
Mm.
digital beats that are incredible. I watched handcrafted furniture become something that comes from IKEA that you put together in 5 seconds and throw away when
Yeah, right.
like is the handcrafted stuff with
Yeah,
imperfection.
but the handcrafted furniture is still, you still pay a lot of money for it because, and people buy it in large numbers, right? I mean, not everything that's coming from IKEA. That's cheap stuff, right? And
Yes.
that's the point is you don't have a lot of money, but you want something that looks nice, but it's cheap.
But listen, we're
And
working.
and I'm a woodworker.
Yeah,
This is a
as am
hobby.
I. But
I'm a
listen,
hobbyist.
we've already talked about it. We're moving into a world without parking lots, without vehicles that you don't own. How do you move your tools around? How do you get the
Dude,
table saw?
I mean, I only do it in my garage. I do it for my, well, here, I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example. So something I want to pursue in the next few years. I live on not quite an acre, and there's a lot to water. And I'm in Southern California, so water's expensive.
Mm.
Um, but we live in the San Diego area where there's a lot of humidity. And there's a lot of fog. So there's this thing called a fog catcher. In fact, for basically being able to distill water out of the air when it's foggy.
Mhm.
And there's this thing called a dew catcher, so that when it cools down, it pulls water, the dew that
No wasted water.
forms, right. And then you can pull water out of the air using a compressor, kind of like an air conditioner does, right? So combining these three things together with some very simple solar technology so that there's no cost to operate it, I want to be able to water my entire property.
That'd
And
be awesome.
these fog catchers are these big these big screen looking things. So I'm going to make it to look like a really cool kite, maybe, that spins with right in different
Yeah.
colors and lines.
Awesome.
And then, right, and because I'll have several of them on my property, and that was my wife's requirement.
Make it
Don't You
visually
can't do
appealing.
this unless it looks beautiful,
Yeah.
right? So, but once I've done that, and I've got two or three of these on my property, people are driving by, everybody's going to want this, right? Because now all of a sudden I'm off the grid from a water perspective, at least as far as watering our property.
Sure.
And so even during major drought, we can still have everything watered and green without using any city water. That's my goal. So now I can turn this into a commercial thing, right? But it uses all my old fashioned skills to create
Mhm.
the thing, right? Woodworking, metalworking, and then it's an inventing kind of thing. So I love inventing stuff. But I don't think any of that stuff's dead. I think it's just as live now. And, you know, I I love making furniture and woodworking tools and things like that. So, we have some pieces in the house that'll when people walk in, they'll see this stand that has this big, beautiful crystal on it, right? And that stand will have bent wood in it, and it'll be one of a kind that I made. Why, that kind of stuff is still really powerful. People pay a lot of money for that type of furniture too. I'm not looking to make money on my woodworking, right? But the water catcher concept, I think, could turn into a really good
Love
business
that idea.
as the future thing, right?
And
Who doesn't want to get off the water grid in cities where it's
off,
expensive to water your
yeah,
property?
you say off grid and visually appealing. You've got, I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah. Anyway, so the world is not becoming totally 100% digital. Hopefully, I can't
And
imagine that.
I hope not.
But I get the idea though. I mean, what if there was such a thing as what's it called on Star Trek, the room
The
that's a
holodeck.
hologram? Holodeck. What if holodeck does become a reality, right?
Well,
In
and
Then it's
yeah,
all of a
and
sudden now
well,
maybe it does.
and what it is, right? The dopamine receptors, the ability for these games, for gambling, for online interactions, for social media
Right.
to push that receptor. They're getting so good at it. We're giving them so much permission. And then
Yeah.
when you think about putting on a VR headset and the added sensory perception that they're going to be able to take advantage of for whether it's thought manipulation or just
Right.
pure
Well, especially
experience.
when they've got VR suits too, right?
I mean,
So all the
yeah,
tactile stuff
I can't
is
wait.
there. Yeah.
We're gonna have to catch up again. We've jammed
Yeah.
this out. I will put your links at the end of the show notes and all that stuff. I enjoyed talking with you. I would love to do a follow-up call
Yeah,
with
me too,
you
Chris.
and talk about getting some of your stuff on chain and figuring out how that can work because it's a game changer.
I love that idea. Yeah. And if anybody's looking for me, click on the links and I'm happy to talk about any of these things. Even if you got a project idea, I'm happy to give you my time just to kind of explore it. It doesn't have to turn into anything, but maybe I can help give you guidance
That's how we
on
do it.
how to pursue it. Right. Exactly.
David, you're awesome. Thank you for tuning in, everybody, and thank you very much.
Yeah, me too. Thank
Okay,
you.
buddy. Bye-bye.
Bye.